Hi, this is Rishabh Rajan, and in this video, we're going to look at the model cycles from Elektron. The second in the model series. First there was the model samples, and now the model cycles. Now Elektron are known for their really high-end sequencers and samplers, but now with the model series, they are targeting the more budget-friendly market, though without sacrificing too much and still giving you a taste of that Elektron hardware experience. So the model cycles is a hardware sequencer, but it uses an FM engine to produce all its sounds. So no samples, but entirely FM synth-based sound elements. Now if you know anything about FM synthesis, you would know that it's an extremely complex synthesis technique, but Elektron has simplified the entire process, making it easy for anyone to get into making beats on this device. Now the hardware itself looks a bit odd, something you might see at a hospital, but it has a pretty rugged build. It is quite light and portable. Connectivity is pretty decent, with USB as well as 5-pin tin connectors. Adapters are included in the box. Aside from the 1/4-inch outputs, it also has audio via USB. Now you have to power this with the included 5-volt adapter, though it does have connectivity for a battery pack, which is not yet released by Elektron. Alright, so I've plugged up the machine, which is pretty simple to do since there's a audio via USB option, so it just plugs in directly to a computer. It also sends MIDI. I have the 5-volt DC power connector. For a small device like this, you would expect it to maybe run on USB power, but you have to have that connected. And as I mentioned, there is a possibility of that battery pack connection. I have the headphones output connected here, and of course the two 1/4-inch outputs, which are not being used right now. Now the output from the USB is identical to the 1/4-inch analog outputs, so you don't get separate outputs from individual tracks via the USB connectivity. Now I'm missing some labels up top here, which would make it a lot easier to figure out what each connector is, though it is a light device and it should be easy to lift it up and have a quick look. Okay, let's talk about the engine now. As I said, completely FM synthesis based engine. You get 6 separate tracks. Each of these 6 tracks can have any of the 6 separate engines that they have developed. You can have just one engine running for all 6 tracks, or just mix and match any way you like. If I tap over here, we can see the engine selector, and with this knob we can swap it out with a different engine. Now one big bummer is that each engine is monophonic. There is an engine called chord, but it does not let you play polyphonically. It just produces a preset chord on a single strike. Now if like me and you're new to the whole Elektron sequencer world, things can feel a little bit intimidating. They have simplified things over here compared to their more higher end devices. One thing that they try to do is to give you that one knob per function experience, which is true to an extent, not entirely, as some of the knobs do give you some multiple functions. As you can see at the bottom here, there are multiple labels. Now once you get a hang of the device, it is pretty simple to figure out how to access those secondary functions. So for example, this knob controls the reverb size, but if I hold down function and twist a knob, I can control the reverb tone. Now the step sequencer is where things get a little complicated, as it's quite a deep step sequencer, despite it being a lot more simplified compared to some of their other hardware. Anyway, let's go ahead and load in a sequence. Now there's tons of storage on this device, and you can also back up to your computer. You get 96 projects. Within each project you get 6 banks of 16 patterns each. Right now I've selected this first bank and that first preset as it's blinking, but I can go to the second bank and pick any other preset. Here these are blank because there aren't any presets stored in there. Let's talk about general navigation of the different menus. So if I tap over here, I'm accessing a particular menu, and I can go into it by pushing in on this knob, or scroll through options by rotating the knob. Right now I'm looking at all the different projects. I can select any of them, and if I want to get out of this menu, I can just hit this back button. Okay, so I'll hold on pattern here, tap T1, and tap 1 here to access the first pattern. Hitting the play button will start the pattern. A bunch of different lights are flashing as the pattern plays, and we can see the step sequencer run through. There's 64 different steps per pattern. Over here you can see which page you're on currently, so each page has 16 steps. I can hit the stop button here to stop the pattern, but while the pattern is running, I can hold down function here and tap any of these 6 buttons to mute the individual tracks. So I've muted all these, but they're flashing letting me know that there is something in there. But this is the only one that's playing. No solo option though. Alright, I can select any of these tracks by holding down track and tapping on any of these buttons Now you could just tap any of those 6 buttons to select the track, but it will also produce a sound. So to quietly select it, you will have to hold down track while you tap the button. Alright, now let's check out the controls. Pitch and decay are same for all the 6 engines. So I can pitch up this particular track, make the decay longer or shorter. Now color, shape, sweep and contour, these 4 parameters will vary what they do depending on which engine is selected. Again, like I said, it's a simplified form of FM synthesis, so you don't really have to worry about the detailed nuances of FM synthesis. Think of it like a macro control for a variety of parameters assigned to these 4 knobs. Right now this track is running, which is in the chord mode. I can tap here to see the engine. So we can see that it says chord. Let's have a listen to what the color dial does. Here it changes the chord inversion. And the shape dial will change the chord we're hearing. You get a variety of different chord presets here. Let's check out some of the other engines. Maybe on one of the other tracks. How about this one here? Track 4. So I'll make sure it's selected. And now we can see the engine. It's the metal engine. So as the name implies, it's good for creating metallic hit sounds. And I can change up the tonality of this engine by tweaking those 4 FM synth knobs. Now, despite the limitations of controls in this FM synth world, for a drum machine, it's a pretty extensive control for one individual sound. Now, on top of all that, you also get to send effects, a reverb and delay. So any of the 6 engines can send to the reverb or delay. Each track also gets access to an LFO. I can tap over here to access the LFO. It can even be switched to an envelope. Or we can rotate this knob here and pick from any of these different LFO shapes. It can be assigned to a variety of different destinations. And one nice thing is that once the destination is selected, it lights up to let you know what that destination is. So yes, that screen is tiny, but having little visual indicators like this one does make it a lot easier to work with the device. There's a volume level control here, but it also adds distortion at higher values, though there is a global level control for each track over here. There's also panning for each track. So if I hold on function and rotate the knob, I can pan that particular track. These 2 knobs over here relate to sequencing. So you get a nudge and swing control per track, as well as a chance and condition control per track. In fact, it's actually per step. So pretty extensive controls here. Alright, I'm going to unmute all the other tracks. So this is all the different tracks playing together. Let's check out a different pattern. So we're in bank 1 here. If I tap 9, we now load in this pattern. You notice how it changes only after the previous pattern finishes playing. So let me try loading a different one in a different bank here. So I'll trigger it now. And it loads now. So kind of like Ableton Live, you have a launch quantization feature. Now we have looked at all the knob controls for each engine, but there's a control all option here. So if I hold this button down, when I tweak a particular knob, I'm tweaking that control for all the 6 tracks. Now before I do this, I'm going to hold down function here and tap this button to access temp save. So my sound right now is temporarily saved. So now let's hold down track here and go crazy by rotating all these knobs to change the various parameters for all the 6 tracks. So I've completely transformed this pattern. And if I want to go back to that previous state, now we're back. Very helpful for live performances. Alright, now let's check out one of my favorite features, which is the number of steps you can set per track. They call it scaling on this machine. Let's have a listen to this pattern. I've selected that first track. I'll hold on function and tap on page here. And here we can set the number of steps. I can also do it directly on the pads here. Let's stay within that first page and bring it down to 9 steps here. Let's have a look at the steps. So you can see that first track is only going through the first 9 steps. Let's go over to track 2. I can also change its playback rate. So this can also create some interesting variety. Halftime. Let's make it double time. Again, this is only affecting track 2. And if you look at the steps, you can see it's running a lot faster. So polymetric patterns should be quite easy to create on this machine. Alright, let's look at creating a pattern from scratch. I've loaded in a blank pattern here. Every track can be auditioned by just tapping these velocity sensitive pads here. And you can also play that particular track chromatically with the step sequence buttons. Especially helpful for the melodic and chord tracks. Alright, now if I want to record a pattern, I can tap the record button and step sequence the pattern. So now my kick drum is going to be a 4 on the floor style pattern. Can add another one there. So that's pretty standard, step sequencing patterns, but we can also record in real time. So if I hit the record and play button together, we get this unquantized recording, but if I double tap it, we get quantized recording. I'll switch back to unquantize and record. So I just recorded in chromatically onto that existing pattern. So now you can see the positions of the individual notes. Now since this was unquantized, every step is slightly off, so I can adjust the nudge value here. Now even if the steps were quantized, you can choose to nudge every step individually like this. Alright, what about swapping out the sound? You can change out the sound after recording a pattern. If I hold on function and this preset menu, we can browse through and load in any of the preset sounds. And they don't have to be the same sound type. Let's load in this preset here. And of course, once it's loaded, you can also tweak the sound further. Alright, let me show you another novel feature of this machine. I'm going to add in a few more steps. Now for these individual steps, I do not want to use the same sound. I want to change out the preset for individual steps. And you can do that here. So while holding down the step, I can go into the browser here. And as long as I'm holding down that step, I can just pick from any of these presets. Let's load in one of these effects. We can audition the sound before we load it in. So again, as long as you're holding down the step, push the button to load the preset, and you'll see that button light up, letting you know that for that one step, you have a different preset. We can even do per step automation. So for example, if I want to adjust the pitch for that step, again, I'll hold down the step and then just adjust the pitch dial. Alright, so that was a quick look at the Electron model cycles, a very powerful FM-based drum machine. There are tons of features that I haven't gone into details here. But for anyone who's looking to get a standalone hardware sequencer / sound generating machine, this would be a great option. Very affordable and sonically quite diverse. With FM synthesis, you can create a wide variety of sounds. And despite the limited control of the FM engine, you can still create some interesting sonic possibilities with this machine. I'm new to the Electron world, and after checking out this machine, I'm very keen to check out some of their more advanced machines. For a deeper dive into this machine, look out for our in-depth course on the model cycles. Until then, this is Rishabh Rajan signing off for Ask.Audio, and I'll see you in the next one.